also distracts from the good we got from the Trump administration. I'll begin with the obvious because it actually is big. Very many people dismiss the idea of Bud Gorsuch, of the Trump appointed justices to the United States Supreme Court, but it actually is a big deal. Aren't you glad that the Republicans did not wait until after the election to try to get Amy Coney Barrett through the Supreme Court? Aren't you glad? You should be glad. She is there. Neil Gorsuch is there. Brett Kavanaugh is there. And so the Supreme Court has a lock center-right coalition. We have a number of courts that have shifted to the right. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, long been the scandalous court, the United States Supreme Court, routinely overruling the Ninth Circuit, has moved to the right, although it's not conservative now. But the 11th Circuit, the 5th Circuit, the 7th Circuit, I think, and the 2nd, I think, all have shifted to the right. The president filled up the circuits, the federal circuit courts. In fact, they even were able to replace Amy Coney Barrett on the circuit she was on out of Indiana. So yes, it does matter. For the last 4 years, we've seen progressives run into court and grab hold of left-wing judges to issue nationwide injunctions on this president. We will see conservatives do the same with the Biden administration. The courts will be a restraint on the Biden administration. When they come for your guns, having a conservative Supreme Court will matter. But that's not all. It is easy to say tax cuts, and the Biden administration wants to get rid of the tax cuts. But it's worth remembering that when the president cut taxes and Nancy Pelosi said $1,200 was chump change, she wanted to give people $1,400 in the stimulus package. $1,200. A lot of individuals got $1,000 to $1,500 from their employers when the president cut taxes. It wasn't just a tax cut on the income tax. What it was a massive repackaging of the corporate and small company tax structure in this country. The American corporate tax rate was the most anti-competitive in the world. Many American businesses were hoarding capital offshore. Apple, for example, had billions of dollars they were leaving in bank accounts offshore because under the American tax code, if they repatriated it, to use the lingo, if they repatriated that money into the United States, Apple would have had a massive tax burden. So Apple kept its money offshore. When the president and the Congress decided to cut the tax rates, Apple was able to bring a lot of that money back to the United States. It created jobs. It created shareholder capital. It created an opportunity for investment in the United States. But it wasn't just Apple. There were a number of banks. What is it, First, Fifth Bank or whatever, started the trend of banks giving their employees more take-home pay, or at least a big bonus because of the tax cut. A lot of major corporations did it. At the time, Democrats routinely dismissed it, but it wasn't just the Democrats. It was members of the media it dismissed as, well, that's all they're giving to their employees. Look at all the money they're giving to their shareholders. That's bad. No, actually, it was very good. And it mattered to individuals. They got an extra $1,000 they were not expecting to get. On foreign policy, this is the first president in years to not start a war. Barack Obama engaged us in Libya. He engaged us in Syria. He never wound down in Afghanistan and Iraq like he promised. George W. Bush, of course, did Iraq and Afghanistan. Bill Clinton did Serbia. George H.W. Bush did Iraq and Panama. Ronald Reagan arguably really didn't do a lot other than Grenada. But Donald Trump did not start any wars. He wound down Iraq and Afghanistan, not completely, but began the drawdown of troops. He did not start any wars. His foreign policy was arguably the most conservative that we've had in a while. He also moved our embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. And one of the things that this did was expose how many hacks there are in the media. When so many people were screaming, this was going to start a war, this will start a war, now we've got peace in the Middle East. The president delivered either through his benign neglect or his pushing them to do it, threatening to withdraw from the Middle East, got Israel and the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain and Oman and Sudan and where else? What other countries? To establish peaceful relations. Israel and I think I said Iran. Israel and the UAE, Israel and Bahrain, Israel and Yemen, or not Yemen, Oman and Sudan and other countries began to have peaceful collaboration and coexistence in ways they had not in the past. Diplomatic recognition, embassies, trade, commerce, telecommunications, because this president was able to push it. He will not get a Nobel Prize for doing so, but he deserves one for it. And the amount of people who bellyached over, oh, he really doesn't deserve the credit. Yes, actually, he does. Now, it could be he deserves the credit because he said, you know what, we're going to withdraw and we're not going to help you anymore, and that forced them to do it. But either way, he deserves the credit for them doing it, and he won't get that credit. He withdrew from the Paris Accord and the Iran deal. Withdrawing from the Iran deal exposed just how malicious Iran actually was, and also helped these Middle Eastern countries get along together. Domestically, the president deregulated at a meaningful level that has been often dismissed in the media. The president and his water efficiency standards will bring back dishwashers and washing machines and showers that actually meaningfully wash. He upped the restrictions on water regulation. So your dishwasher, which takes 2 hours now, could actually take an hour in the future and actually legitimately wash your dishes. The Trump administration also forced the left to deal with federalism. Because of their disdain for the president and his restrictions of federal power, the left, to advance their agenda, was forced to deal with the states and work through states, which is what they're supposed to do. Listen, if California wants a universal health care program, we should all applaud California's willingness to do so, even if the rest of us don't want it. But California should be allowed to experiment within the bounds of federalism. We can oppose federal subsidy for them for doing it, but they should be allowed to experiment. And they have, because they know they can't get anywhere with Donald Trump. So federalism actually has been alive and well over the past 4 years. In education, the president and Betsy DeVos have been brilliant. They have cleared up due process issues when people in colleges and on campuses are charged with, for example, sexual assault in ways they have these Orwellian trials. They're actually allowed now to actually have a good due process standard. So often people have been falsely accused on campuses, and they have a witch trial. No more. They have streamlined the student loan and education process and disbursements to states. They have restricted the spread of federal money outside of programs, Title I programs, where kids with special needs need the money. And prior administrations had expanded the pool of people who were able to get the money, thereby harming special needs kids. The president has also signed criminal justice reform, allowing a lot of people out of prison who really didn't need to stay in prison given the minor offenses they've done, particularly with marijuana and other minor charges, while he's also expanded use of the death penalty in this country to get rid of those who have been left on death row with taxpayer subsidy for some time. They've now been executed. This administration has done a lot of good. This administration has inarguably, frankly, done good. It has been overshadowed by their critics. It has been overshadowed by a press unwilling to acknowledge the good things this administration has done. It has been overshadowed oftentimes by even a Republican Party that has not wanted to say, you know what, this actually was a good thing.